Sarah Turner was a 36-year-old mother of two who had always been known for her kindness and warmth. She lived in a modest home on the outskirts of the small town of Willow Creek, where she worked as a receptionist at the local pediatric clinic. Sarah was the kind of woman who never hesitated to help others, always putting her family and friends before herself. To the outside world, she appeared to have a picture-perfect life, a loving husband, two bright children, and a job she enjoyed. But beneath the surface, Sarah's life was anything but perfect. Sarah's marriage to Ethan Turner, a quiet and seemingly unremarkable man, had started off full of love and promise. They had met in college, and after a whirlwind romance, they married. Sarah's dream of having a family came true when they had two children, Lily and Max, both under the age of 10. However, as the years passed, cracks began to form in their relationship. Ethan, a factory worker with a growing resentment towards his life, turned inward. Sarah's once joyous marriage became emotionally taxing. Ethan struggled with anger issues, which Sarah tried to ignore, convincing herself it was just stress from work. But soon, the emotional abuse escalated to something darker: isolation. Sarah was no longer allowed to spend time with her friends or family. Ethan grew controlling, constantly checking her phone, questioning her whereabouts, and showing jealousy over her work. Despite the tension, Sarah kept up the facade, afraid to leave for fear of what Ethan might do. She had no one to turn to, no one who would understand the gravity of her silence. On the evening of July 16th, Sarah called her mother, Deborah, sounding more distant than usual. "I just feel like something's wrong, Mom," Sarah had said, her voice cracking. "It's like he's not the same person anymore, but I can't explain it." Deborah, immediately concerned, asked if Sarah was okay. Sarah reassured her that everything was fine, but there was a palpable tension in her voice. That night, Sarah had planned to go to a late appointment with her therapist, but when she didn't return by midnight, Deborah began to worry. The next morning, Sarah's car was found parked in the driveway, but there was no sign of her. Ethan claimed that Sarah had left the house early in the morning to clear her head after an argument, but when Deborah tried to call Sarah's phone, it went straight to voicemail. No one had seen or heard from her since the night before. The police were immediately called in, and an investigation began. Sarah's disappearance seemed puzzling. There were no signs of a struggle, no forced entry into the house, and no clear motive for why she would leave voluntarily. Her husband, Ethan, was the prime suspect, but his story remained consistent. He claimed that Sarah had simply walked out after an argument and left no trace behind. As investigators combed through the evidence, they uncovered a series of unsettling details about Ethan's behavior. Neighbors reported hearing loud arguments coming from the Turner household in the weeks leading up to Sarah's disappearance. But when they asked Ethan about these reports, he denied everything. The case went cold for weeks. With no physical evidence pointing to foul play, the police were unable to make any arrests, and Sarah's family began to lose hope. Despite this, Deborah never stopped searching for her daughter. She launched a social media campaign, spoke to the media, and even organized volunteer search parties around Willow Creek. Weeks turned into months, and the town of Willow Creek began to move on, but Deborah's quest for answers did not waver. It wasn't until October 3rd that a crucial piece of evidence surfaced. A local man, Ronald Hughes, who had been hiking near the Turner residence, stumbled upon a handwritten note tucked in a tree stump. The note, in Sarah's handwriting, read, "If anything happens to me, Ethan is not who he seems to be. I'm afraid of what he might do. I need help." This was the breakthrough the investigation needed. The police immediately brought Ethan in for questioning, but he stuck to his story, maintaining his innocence. Yet the note, coupled with Ethan's increasing erratic behavior, caused the police to reevaluate their approach. They began to dig deeper into Sarah's life, examining her finances, her relationships, and even her therapy sessions. As the investigation unfolded, it was revealed that Sarah had been seeing a therapist for months, struggling to cope with her marriage to Ethan. She had documented instances of verbal and emotional abuse, as well as the increasing isolation she felt in her own home. Sarah had planned to leave Ethan for good, but she had been terrified of his reaction. Her therapist had advised her to gather evidence and make an escape plan, which Sarah had begun to do. But the final piece of the puzzle came when the police discovered a hidden voice recording on Sarah's phone made just days before her disappearance. In it, Sarah tearfully explained the abuse she had endured over the years and expressed her fears of leaving. She had finally found the courage to leave Ethan, but she was afraid it would lead to something much worse, Ethan hurting her or taking away the children. The voice recording was the evidence the police needed to arrest Ethan Turner for Sarah's murder. He had killed her in a fit of rage after she confronted him about leaving. He then staged her disappearance to make it appear as though she had walked out on her family, but the evidence pointed to a brutal crime hidden beneath his facade of grief. Ethan was arrested, and the full extent of his abuse was revealed to the public. The community, devastated by the truth, came together to support Sarah's children, who had lost their mother and were left in the custody of Deborah. The case brought attention to the hidden dangers of domestic abuse and the importance of giving survivors the space and support they need to come forward. As for Deborah, she became an advocate for other victims of domestic violence, dedicating her life to helping others who were trapped in silence and fear, just as her daughter had been. Sarah's memory lived on, not just as a victim, but as a symbol of courage and a reminder of the silent cries of those still suffering in silence. A young mother vanished without a trace. The last person she was seen with is her secretive husband, and he has a lot to hide. When cops search his house, they uncover a shocking secret that leads to his arrest. It was a cold December evening in 2015 when 36-year-old Sarah Turner called her mother, Deborah Turner. She sounded upset and told her mother she needed some advice. But before Deborah could help her daughter, the phone line went dead. She tried calling back, but the call went straight to voicemail. This was odd because Sarah would never hang up on her mother. Deborah knew something was wrong, so she drove to her daughter's house. But when she got there, she found no sign of Sarah. The front door was locked, but Deborah could see through the windows that everything was in order. It didn't look like there had been a struggle. There were no signs of forced entry either. Had Sarah just stepped out for some fresh air? Deborah thought this must have been the case. So she decided to wait a while and then try calling again. When Sarah still hadn't returned home an hour later, Deborah became worried. So she called the police and reported her missing. They came to the conclusion that Sarah had simply run away from home. But Deborah knew her daughter wouldn't do that. She had no reason to. As far as Deborah knew, Sarah had a good life. She had a loving family and a nice house, so why would she abandon them? Sarah and her husband, Ethan Turner, lived in a nice neighborhood in Colorado. Their two daughters, Bella and Nicole, were attending a holiday party at their aunt's house. So they weren't at home when Deborah showed up. Ethan welcomed Deborah inside and gave her a glass of water. He seemed nice enough, but he was acting weird. For example, he kept telling Deborah that Sarah wasn't there, but he didn't seem angry that she was missing. This made Deborah suspicious. When Sarah didn't come home that night, Ethan told the police that she had gone to her mother's house, but Deborah told the police that wasn't true. That was when the police started taking a closer look at Ethan. What they found out was disturbing. Ethan Turner was a total control freak. He demanded that Sarah always be reachable by phone. He also took care of all the finances and wouldn't let her work. He even told her what to wear, and if that wasn't bad enough, he also beat her. On several occasions, Sarah had called the police to report her husband for domestic violence, but every time she would recant her statement and tell the cops that it was all her fault. Because of this, Ethan was never charged. But what happened after those incidents? Did Sarah go back to her husband, or did she stand up for herself? The police wanted to know the answer to that question. So they went to talk to Sarah's friends and family members. They soon discovered that Sarah had suffered verbal and psychological abuse from her husband for many years. But lately, things had become more violent. About 6 weeks before Sarah disappeared, she told her friend, Amanda, that her husband had shoved her down a flight of stairs and broken her wrist. But once again, Sarah refused to press charges against her husband. Sarah's relatives were shocked. Why didn't she just divorce him? Well, that's what they were about to find out. As part of their investigation, the police searched the Turners' home. They were looking for clues as to what might have happened to Sarah, but the place looked way too neat. Everything was in its place, almost as if Sarah had never been there. Was Ethan hiding something? The police decided to take a closer look at the couple's computers, phones, and other devices. They were hoping to find something that could explain what had happened to Sarah, but first, they had to get a warrant. When they finally got access to the data, their blood boiled. Ethan had been cheating on his wife the whole time. He was having an affair with one of his co-workers. He had even sent his lover explicit photos of himself and talked about how much he hated his wife. He also made a bizarre confession. In one of his emails, he wrote, "I should take Sarah to the hospital so she can finally stop being a pain in my neck." This was creepy, to say the least. Did Ethan harm his wife? The police continued their search. They looked into Sarah's phone and computer, but it didn't turn up anything useful. But then they found a crumpled piece of paper in her closet. It was a handwritten note she had written to her mother. It said, "I am scared. I don't feel safe." Sarah had obviously written it shortly before she disappeared. The police also found a video recording on Sarah's phone. It was a message she had recorded so that her daughter would know the truth about her father. In it, she said, "If something happens to me, I want you to know that your dad is responsible. I'm only with him because I'm scared of him. Your dad hurts me. He pinches, pokes, shoves, pushes, and kicks me. And sometimes he doesn't let me eat or drink. Sometimes I feel like he wants me dead. If I disappear, I want you to know that he is capable of doing that. Please don't ever forget that he is capable of killing me." After hearing these chilling words, the police were convinced that Ethan was behind his wife's disappearance. They brought him in for questioning, but he told them that he hadn't seen his wife for a long time. He said he suspected that she was with her lover, but the police knew that wasn't true. When they searched Ethan's phone, they found a photo of Sarah. It had been taken a few hours before she disappeared. And guess where it was taken? At the exact spot where her body would later be found. It was clear to the police that Ethan was lying. They searched his car and found traces of blood in the trunk. They also found a large amount of cash hidden in his sock. Why did he have so much money? Could it be that he planned to run away with his mistress and used the money to bribe his wife into going away quietly? Maybe, but Ethan had another secret that proved his guilt. He was secretly wearing a GPS ankle bracelet. Why? A year earlier, he had been sentenced for attacking Sarah. He was supposed to be under house arrest. But the police never saw him at home. He must have bribed someone to take his ankle bracelet. Now that the police had undeniable proof that he was guilty, Ethan confessed. He told the police where he had buried his wife's body. He claimed he acted in self-defense, saying that Sarah had thrown herself down the stairs. But the police knew this wasn't true. The autopsy showed that Sarah had been strangled. In court, Ethan admitted that he had abused his wife, but he denied murder. He claimed that Sarah fell down the stairs and hit her head on the concrete, but the judge didn't buy his story. After weighing all the evidence, he ruled that Ethan was guilty of murdering Sarah. He was so relieved that the truth was finally coming out. Her brother said, "My parents are happy now. My mom no longer has to worry about Sarah looking over her shoulder or walking on eggshells around Ethan. She's at peace now." We're all heartbroken, but we know Sarah is in a better place. What did Sarah's husband get? To hear that, click here and make sure you subscribe so you won't miss another video.